Good evening and happy Indigenous Peoples Day. I now call the meeting to order for the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, October 9th, 2023. And I will ask Commissioner Klepak if she will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Klepak. Anna, if we could do voice roll call, please.
Chair Aaron.
Present.
Vice Chair Toller.
Here.
Commissioner Rojas.
Present.
Commissioner Zick.
Here.
Commissioner Andrade.
Here.
Commissioner Vivar.
Present.
Commissioner Klepak. Present.
All right, thank you, Anna. I see no announcements or presentations this evening, which bring us to public comments. So for the public, these are for matters that are not listed on tonight's agenda, but are within our jurisdiction. So I'll now open up the public comment period. If you'd like to speak, you'll have 3 minutes, and at the 1 minute mark, you'll hear the little chime, and then the mic will cut off. So starting with Ms. Simo.
Hi, my name is Wendy Samo. I'm here about the gym at 140 East 17th Street again. So I sent you guys lots of evidence today. Hopefully you guys got lots of all your evidence of your videos and stuff, hopefully. So the CUP image that I sent you is for the CUP for the UFC gym on Harbor. It was done in 2016. And I'd like to point out on it, on the conditions number 4, it says, the business shall be conducted at all times in a manner that will allow the quiet enjoyment of the surrounding neighborhood. So I want to know how in 1992 they didn't talk about sound, they didn't talk about bass, nothing on the CUP about any of this. In 2019, this was in 16 that this one was written. In 19, nothing again about sound, bass, absolutely nothing. They prop their door open every single day. Every day. We get to hear the instructor. We get to hear the music. They can't even keep the instructor's noise inside with the door closed, but yet the city of Costa Mesa is allowing them to prop open their fire safety door every single day. And they just prop it open at about 8:30 in the morning, and they don't shut it till about 8 o'clock at night. And I just don't understand why this community is so much more valuable than my community. And you want to talk about zoning, I looked it up for you. The house right next to us is the exact same zone that the UFC gym was protecting in their CUP. If you ask me personally, CUPs are just a way to let your friends get around their corners. Everything should be standard for a gym. If you open a gym, you should not be able to hear it outside of the gym at any point during the workout. I want to know, they say they're putting in sound barriers, whatever. I want to know when the gym's going to have to keep their door shut, when the gym's going to be held accountable for all the base that they are just imploding upon our community. And I did talk to the fire marshal, and he said they probably should not have their fire safety door propped open with a fan in front of it, you know, because we're having problems with them with the door shut, and now you guys are just allowing them to leave it open. And I need to know. I gave you guys plenty of evidence. I mean, I don't work for you guys. I don't even get paid, and I've got hundreds of evidence. I've sent you guys hundreds of evidence. I've sent you evidence after evidence after evidence, have I not? Have a great day. I'll wait.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Simo. Anyone else in chambers wish to speak this evening on items that are not listed on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none. Anna, if we want to go on to Zoom or telephone?
No, there's not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to Planning Commissioner comments and suggestions, starting with Commissioner Klepak.
I just wanted to note that I'm so excited to see the sustainability that's going on in the city of Costa Mesa. I last night attended the Strong Towns OC meeting. Not to steal anybody's thunder there, but it was very interesting to see, you know, cities being built for people and kind of reducing congestion. Also, I just wanted to note that we have the sustainability decathlon going on this weekend, so I recommend that. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Klepak. On that note, the America Walks is currently co-running the first ever National Week Without Driving, which is supposed to encourage people to walk when possible and reduce those vehicle trips with walking and transit instead. I know we live in Southern California and it's not always easy to get around transit with transit, but yeah, you'd be surprised how much of even the city of Costa Mesa you're able to see and discover by foot in a way that you wouldn't see by car. Just zooming past maybe some businesses or parks or something, and being able to get out in the community and walk is just invaluable. And I again want to give another shout out to our Public Works Department for all the great work that is being done on Placentia and 19th Street. I know there's a new signal on 19th and Wallace that'll be going in soon, so excited to see that, and really excited as well to see that the little pedestrian countdowns are up and running along 19th, and I was able to cross the 19th and Placentia crosswalk last week, and I know that having grown up in that area, I know that that's a heavily transited crosswalk by people who live in that neighborhood. So having that improvement there with the little countdown ticker is great for the community. So really happy to see all that, and we're making great strides in making our city walkable, and I know we'll continue to do more of that in the future. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Rojas.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Zick.
Not a lot of comments, but I think one request. Not sure what the process is, but I'd like to see the CUP for Gym 12 brought back to Planning Commission for review. Thank you.
Commissioner Vallarta. Okay, all right, Vice Chair.
Sure, thank you. I'll just echo the comments of some of my colleagues in that, I guess, shouting out to Public Works. The projects on West 19th are great. We're making our streets safer. We're slowing down cars. We're making it more safe and enjoyable environment. Placentia looks great. We have bollards there, protected bike lanes, where there's no reason we shouldn't have had those. So that's so cool that we made that happen. We're connecting all of Mesa Verde to Fairview Park and Estancia, which is low-hanging fruit and in a lot of people's opinion, a no-brainer. So very cool that we did that. Leading pedestrian intervals all over the city, totally noticeable if you walk around. And yeah, Strong Towns Orange County is this group that it's called a local conversation. It just emerged. Costa Mesans didn't put it together. It was actually some people from Irvine. We happened to hold the first gathering here in Costa Mesa, and there were a ton of people from all over Orange County excited about the Strong Towns movement and its principles. A lot of people, obviously, from Costa Mesa, not just because we held it here, because there's a lot of change in Costa Mesa, a lot of people excited about this, but from other communities too that found each other, right? So everyone's connecting and coming together despite their political persuasions. Otherwise, they're coming together towards these principles. If you don't know what it is, look up strongtowns.org. They have really 5 campaigns that they organize around: transparent local accounting, ending freeway expansions, safe and productive streets, incremental housing, and ending parking mandates. So if any of that sounds good to you, look up Strong Towns and follow Strong Towns OC. Yeah, and in general, in light of all these things about walkability, bikeability, financial resilience. I'll just reiterate, the most important thing we can be doing as a city right now, ahead of a lot of big projects in the pipeline, in light of this housing element, is getting our streets right, getting things, ending auto dependency so we don't have a ton of new residents that drive everywhere for everything. That will be that will be a huge miss. That will be bad. So now's the time to figure things out before those things are entitled and built and planned. Now's the time to do that. So great job to Public Works and everybody working for that sort of thing. That's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Toller. As far as my comments this evening, I'd like to thank the David team that's presenting later, Mr. Billy, Ms. Samo, thank you for being here. We also have a couple other special guests this evening. We have our Mayor Pro Tem, Jeffrey Harlan, who's joining us this evening. And we also have my father, David, that's joining us this evening. So thanks everyone for being here. I noticed today we had Carlos and Jim from Public Works that were on my street doing some patch work, and I thought they did an excellent job, so I wanted to pass that on. My thanks. So I guess it was a few weekends ago now, because we actually didn't have a Planning Commission meeting a couple Mondays ago. I took part in the Stand, which is a brand new get-together to answer homelessness and end homelessness within the city of Costa Mesa. It was a joint effort between Trellis and the city of Costa Mesa. And I think Nate Robbins did an excellent job at articulating exactly what the city's doing and how we're pretty much leading in that effort regionally. It really was quite something to behold. So I was happy to take part in that professionally with my line of work. I also attended the Emergency Operations Center at the Fairview Developmental Center. I think that was about a week and a half ago. And it was a very interesting meeting. I would highly encourage Costa Mesans to watch the video if it's kept anywhere on YouTube. I'm not sure if they filmed it. Might be on Costa Mesa Brief somewhere, I think. Because what the state is proposing is approximately 15 acres of a regional emergency operations center on the 100+ acre property of Fairview Developmental Center. And there were some very interesting features of what the state is proposing there. So I would highly encourage the public to look into that before the cutoff period. And Director Drapkin, do you recall when the deadline is? Is it the 23rd for written responses to the EIR?
Yeah, I believe it was the 23rd.
Okay, I think it's the 20 or somewhere around there. So if you have something to say, then say it before the 23rd. Moving along, I also last week attended the Newport Mesa Unified School District board meeting. I thought it was fantastic. We had students that were out there from all the high schools, Newport, CDM, Estancia, Costa Mesa, who were articulating what is being done at all of those high schools to answer mental health, to improve mental health on the schools. So I thought that was very insightful. And there was also an item of particular interest to Costa Mesa that centered on community schools funding. So that was also a very exciting development as well. So for any Title I schools that we might have here in the district, there may be new funding that would come to assist those schools. I will also highlight that coming up on Thursday, pretty much all day from, I think it's 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, we have Sustain SoCal that's holding their energy conference right here at the fairgrounds. I'm planning to attend. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful get-together. So if you like energy efficiency and sustainability, you can sign up online with that group, and we'll see you there. So with that said, I think that's all for me, and we'll go ahead and move things along to the consent calendar.
Sure.
Commissioner Arith, before you do, it's October 20th.
October 20th for the EIR? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Zick.
Regarding my interest in the CUP coming back for review, does that take a majority of the commission to make that happen?
I think we can, Director Drapkin, if we wanted to make a request on the dais to possibly bring back the 12 gym, or is that something I can just decide right here?
We could ask
Bring it back in for the commission to make a decision on that.
Okay.
Would be the best way. But before they do, I just wanted to mention that currently the city is going out and we've hired an acoustical analysis to be performed for Ms. Simone, and that's still in the works. So I think at this point it would be a little bit premature.
Okay.
But at that point when the study is completed, we have, like I said, hired an acoustical engineer. I think that might be a better time to consider it.
Okay. Commissioner Zick, in light of new data being presented by the acoustical engineer, do you think it's worthwhile for us to hold off and see those data first before we consider taking it up here?
Yeah, I would suggest as soon as that report is complete, that's the point in time to put it on our agenda.
Okay.
Rather than have to request it again or request status of that so it can be requested again.
Okay. I think, I'm just one of 7 up here, but I would say hold off on it until we get done with the, until we have a chance to look at the data and see if it's even warranted to discuss it. So that's just my thought. I'm happy to hear everyone else if you have any thoughts on the matter.
Do we have a timeline on the study?
The engineer's been contracted and he's looking for a moment to go out and put the sensors or come out in person. The last time I spoke to him was last week, and he was asking to hang some of the sensors on the adjacent utility poles. So I'm not sure how Public Works has responded to that, but at some point it'll be probably in the next couple weeks.
Thank you.
Okay. Happy to continue discussing this if anyone wants to jump in. All right, seeing none, we'll just go ahead and move this along then. Consent calendar. We have 2 consent calendar items tonight, and all matters will be listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the Planning Commission, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Items removed from the consent calendar will be discussed and voted upon immediately following Planning Commission action on the remainder of the consent calendar. So Anna, if you would please read the title of the consent calendar items, please.
Consent calendar item number 1, May 9th, 2022, unofficial meeting minutes. Consent calendar item number 2, August 4th, on page 7 of the consent calendar item number 2 in the voting results section. That will be corrected.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. Commissioners, do you have any comments on the consent calendar? Commissioner Bavar.
Oh, no, I don't. Sorry.
Oh, okay. You just had your mic on. All right. In that case, may I have a motion, please? Motion made by Vice Chair Toller. What's your motion, Vice Chair?
I move that the commission approve the minutes as written.
Okay. I'll go ahead and second that. Would anyone else like to comment on the consent calendar? All right. Seeing none, Anna, if we could do roll call vote, please.
That motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you, Anna. All right, and if you would, please read the public hearing item number 1, if you would.
Public hearing item number 1, planning application 22-31 and tentative tract map number 19246 for a master plan for a 9-unit live-work development at 1540 Superior Avenue. Please note, we have received public comments on this item that have been provided to the commission and made a part of the record. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any ex parte, starting with Commissioner Rojas?
I have none.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Zick, no. Commissioner Andrade, Vice Chair? Commissioner Vavar?
No.
Commissioner Klepak?
No.
I have 1 to report because I had the pleasure of speaking to adjacent business owner to subject property, Mr. Billy, sitting in the front. And then we discussed just some of the facts of the project. There was no indication of vote there. It was just to clarify some information. And that's all I have to report. So I'll now turn it over to Mr. Raimondo to present the item.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Raimondo, Assistant Planner with the Economic and Development Services Department, and I will be presenting the item before you tonight. And to get started, the project is located within the 19th West Urban Plan, and the intent of this urban plan is to allow opportunities for mixed-use development, including live-work development in the urban plan area, while not including major intensifications of use. By definition, a live-work unit is a mixed-use development composed of joint work and living quarters in the same building. So the project we have here tonight is proposing 9 live-work units. The urban plan does allow for flexible development standards and allow for deviations from the requirements if specific findings can be made. In this case, live-work development standards found within the Mesa West Bluff urban plan shall be applicable to live-work development located within the 19 West urban plan area. Tonight, the project is required to make findings for a master plan, urban plan deviation, and tentative track map. On to the project's history. The master plan was first heard by the City Council on January 18, 2022 for a master plan screening. The screening was an opportunity for the City Council to provide feedback on the proposed project before the applicant prepares for a formal master plan submittal. As you can see, the rendering on the top right reflects the original design presented in 2022, and the rendering on the bottom is the proposed design for comparison. Some of the feedback brought by the council reflected on the design of the project, including that the design does not take advantage of the corner location. The applicant responded by revising the corner massing by implementing additional structural articulations, such as stepping back the third level of the corner unit. Additional feedback was that the design must activate the streetscape. In response, the applicant provided additional planter boxes around the perimeter of the street corner to improve the pedestrian scale, and the ground level exterior elevations now also include larger windows and commercial signage to activate the workspace areas. And lastly, the council indicated that the overall design was formulaic. The applicant responded by modifying the design to include 3 individual floor plans with varying layouts, whereas the original proposal only consisted of 1 floor plan type to be used for all units. The project site is located on the eastern corner of the intersection of Superior Avenue and Industrial Way. The project abuts existing industrial uses on each side. To the north is a nonprofit health organization called Share Ourselves. To the east is an auto repair use. To the west, across Superior Avenue, is an antique restoration store. And to the south, across Industrial Way, is the City of Newport Beach Corporation Yard. The subject site is also within close proximity of another existing live-work development, which is 150 feet southeast of the project site. The proposed project is also located within a half mile from bus stops for the 47 line and the 50 general industrial, and has a general plan land use designation of light industrial. The adjacent properties are all zoned general industrial, including the properties across Industrial Way and Superior Avenue. The existing conditions of the site includes 1 single-story industrial building, which is proposed to be demolished as part of the project. The site photos to the left are views of the site from Superior Avenue, and the site photos to the right are views from Industrial Way. The project proposes a master plan to demolish the existing development and to construct 9 live-work units with attached garages and additional on-site parking with a deviation from the minimum lot size. The project also proposes a tentative track map to subdivide the property for individual ownership, and the overall height of the proposed buildings is 3 floors at 42 feet. The total FAR proposed for the project is 0.98, which is under the maximum permitted per the urban plan, and various site improvements are proposed, including new hardscape and landscaping. The project proposes a tentative track map to allow individual ownership live-work units. Staff has reviewed the proposed tract map with the Municipal Code and Subdivision Map Act and has determined that the tentative tract map is in compliance with the respective regulations. Approved master plans and the urban plan allow new construction that does not fully meet all the applicable standards of the urban plan. A deviation has been proposed to allow for the project on a lot that is less than the minimum 1 acre lot size. The urban plan allows for this deviation provided that all other development standards are met. And the lot size deviation will result in a project that includes a smaller number of units than other potential projects on a lot of 1 acre or more. However, the project meets the objectives of the urban plan by providing a well-designed delivered project, which improves the streetscape, maintains the development capacity of the general plan transportation system, and provides unique housing for small business entrepreneurs and artists. Pursuant to the urban plan, in order for a deviation to be approved, the project must provide quality environments and substantial amenities. As proposed, the project includes 4 units with storefronts facing the street along Industrial Way. In addition, high-quality, drought-tolerant, and native landscaping is proposed throughout the project, with the proposed number of trees and shrubs to well exceed the code minimum. The proposed site plan includes 2 buildings, with the north building featuring 5 units and the south building featuring 4 units. The south building unit workspaces are oriented to face Industrial Way, while the north building units are oriented to face a new walkway. The project is providing the minimum number of parking as required by the code, where 14 tenant and 14 open parking spaces will be provided. 5 of the units features a 2-car garage, and the other 4 units feature a 1-car garage and tuck under open parking. And all open parking is required to be made available to guests. Also, bike racks will be proposed on the property, which is accredited as 1 parking space. The proposed project includes 3 unit models, each ranging between 1,506 to 1,930 square feet of living area. Each unit is proposed with a ground floor workspace and accessible restroom. The residential space is located above the proposed work areas and includes a 2nd floor living area with a kitchen and a half bathroom. Units A1 and A2 will consist of a 90 square foot deck, and unit A3 will consist of a 145 square foot deck area on the 2nd floor. For unit type A1, the 3rd floor is proposed to include 2 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms and another deck area of 145 square feet. For unit types A2 and A3, the 3rd floor will contain 3 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms. In contrast to unit type A1, these 2 unit types will instead have access to a roof deck on the 4th floor of 189 square feet. The 4th floor is also proposed to include a mechanical area for the placement of HVAC and other mechanical equipment, which is located behind a screening parapet. The proposed development has been designed in a modern style with articulation and offsets on the various elevations to provide transitions among the different units. The project includes contemporary design features, including modern elements such as large windows, a mixture of exterior building materials, and a variety of vertical and horizontal articulations. Each unit includes a 2nd-story balcony, large 2nd and 3rd-story windows, and large open storefronts on the ground level, with the 4 units featuring storefronts facing Industrial Way. The urban plan requires that landscape areas consist of native and drought-tolerant plant material. As mentioned, the proposed number of plants well exceeds the code minimum, where 11 trees are proposed on site, as well as 189 shrubs. A final landscaping plan will be reviewed with the building permit plan check and will need to comply with the water efficiency landscape ordinance. In addition, as required by code, all parking, access, and walkways will be illuminated, with lighting will be reviewed for code compliance with the building permit submittal. Also, the code requires that the utilities be undergrounded and that all meters be screened. This will also be reviewed with the building permit submittal. Now, an integral part of the live work units is the work component. A variety of small-scale services are encouraged by the urban plan, with limited larger and commercial uses being permitted through a discretionary review. The matrix on screen provides a list of permitted and conditionally permitted uses as established in the urban plan. Now, only conditionally approved land uses would require subsequent review and action by the Planning Commission at the time the use is proposed. Parking requirements, lease space, size restrictions, hours of operation, and other related conditions of approval would be stipulated for these conditional uses. Now, all live work projects are required to submit a noise study, phase 1 environmental assessment, and a health risk assessment. Now, these studies were submitted as part of the project and did not reveal any environmental concerns. And the studies, environmental analysis assisted in identifying that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA. In addition to a variety of standard conditions, the project also includes conditions related to units to be marketed as live work and workspaces to be maintained, notice to buyers to be required to disclose the location in an industrial zone, include operational characteristics of surrounding uses, including potential noise and odors. Roof decks are also conditioned not to include any permanent furniture. And a couple additional project conditions include paved areas to be decorative stamped concrete or pervious pavers with no standard concrete swales. And CCNRs established shall require vehicle parking in garages that storage cannot interfere with garage parking. And the CCNR shall also prohibit outside storage of boats, trailers, RVs, and shall require a plan for maintenance of open spaces and common areas and sidewalks. In order to approve the project, the Planning Commission must make the required findings for tentative track maps, master plans, and a deviation. Now, staff has concluded proposed findings in the report. In short, the project is compatible with the zoning code, general plan, and urban plan. With that said, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and to approve master plan application and deviation and tentative track map subject to the conditions of approval. Now, this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here with their team, and they have also prepared a presentation as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Raimondo. I appreciate it. Colleagues, do you have any questions of staff? Commissioner Zick.
Let me start with this first question. You mentioned on page 3 of the staff report that this project is in the 19 West Urban Plan area, which I agree with. But on page 15 of conditions of approval, you have a requirement under the planning section, number 1, that says that development shall comply with all the requirements of the Mesa West Bluffs urban plan. So can you explain why you invoke that urban plan for development standards?
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. The 19 West urban plan refers to the Mesa Bluffs urban plan for live work projects specifically. So with regards to design standards.
Okay. And there's a distinction in both 19 West and the Mesa West, a distinction between live work and residential lofts. And I want to know if I'm understanding the residential loft development, which this is not. Is that just a traditional townhouse development? Is that what residential lofts are referring to? Or is there a distinction between what people would consider traditional townhouses and what is specified in here in these plans as residential lofts?
There actually is a section of the Mesa Bluffs urban plan that talks about the distinctions between the live-work lofts and the residential lofts. And I'd be happy to read through them. It does really kind of highlight a couple factors, including the difference between densities and the basic intent of the contrasting between, I'm sorry to get mixed up, I'm trying to read it as I'm trying to summarize it, but Basically, what it says is a residential loft in the Mesa West Urban Plan area are limited to 13 dwelling units per acre. The primary purpose is to serve as a living quarter and not commerce. So that was basically the residential lofts definition. Therefore, in contrast to a live-work unit.
What, stop.
Go ahead.
I'm not so much looking at the contrast between the live work and the residential loft. I'm asking, is there a difference between residential lofts and what we would consider a traditional townhouse development? So if,
I guess I don't understand your question, because this project is for a live-work unit, not a residential loft.
I understand that. So my question is, because we're talking about this urban plan, and there are elements and descriptions in the urban plan that talk about the distinction between live, work, and residential loft. I'm wondering, is there a further distinction between residential loft and what we would consider traditional townhouse residential? Is there something unique about residential loft? In other words, would residential loft be allowed on this site as part of the urban plan? I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
My question is trying to understand, would a traditional townhouse development on this site be allowed?
A traditional townhouse on the site would not be allowed.
Why is that?
This site is within an urban plan which has an overlay that only allows for the residential lofts or the live works.
Which now leads back to my question. What is the difference between traditional townhouse development, which would not be allowed, and a residential loft development, which would be? What's the difference?
The maximum density for the lofts is 13 dwelling units per acre.
Right.
And the other one would be 20
For a townhouse?
for a townhouse, and generally in the high density areas.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Sorry, it took me a while to
Sure.
get to it. So there is a lot of interest in this work component, both in terms of the discussion that took place during the screening and also in the discussion by the Planning Commission a month ago at a similar project, and I was not part of that discussion. So my question is, because you referenced the live work development just southeast of this, my question is this. Of those units, and there's approximately 60 of them in that development, of those units, how many of them have Costa Mesa city business licenses?
I definitely would have to check into that to make sure, but the requirement is that they would have some type of work requirement area.
Yeah,
But
would
as far as a
require
business
that?
license, I wouldn't have the right answer or the exact answer of that. And some operations don't require a business license. So there's a work component that doesn't necessarily require a business license to work within a live work unit.
Home office being an obvious example.
And some of them do. Some home offices do have business licenses.
Okay.
Commissioner Zick, if I may continue on.
Yeah, please.
As part of the research for this project, staff did an unofficial survey of live work units, basically just walking around the approved units. And of all of the approved units in City Hall that we walked by, there were approximately 35 that you could see into the work area. And of those 35, 34 of them appeared to be work area. The other one appeared to be a gym.
As part of your surveying, did you notice if any of those had a business sign over the door?
Yes, there were a few.
Were there?
I can think of 4 that I saw.
Okay.
Yes.
I must have walked the wrong area. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Commissioner Zick, when I drove through that area, I did look for signage as well, and there certainly wasn't as many signage as you would want to expect for a live-work area. And that is one of the conditions why staff put it on this project.
Not when we put so much emphasis on it, including affidavits, which have to be periodically signed and reviewed. And we give a density bonus effectively for these things being built. Yeah. Okay, on page 3, there's an indication that this project is located within a half mile of 2 OCTA bus routes. My question about that, and I don't know the legality with the thing that Newsom signed not too long ago. Does this project require, or let me say it differently, are we able to require that this project provide parking since it's located within a half mile? Or does that Newsom law only apply to residential and not to live work?
It's my understanding that there would be a parking exemption for this project, but I would have to look a little bit further into that just to see how it corresponds with a live-work type component. But I do, it's my understanding that a mixed use is subject to that parking exemptions.
Be interesting to hear what the applicant has to say about that when it's his turn. On the same subject of parking, while I'm at it, if you could turn to page 10 of the presentation, something I was not able to locate was parking stall number 9. We indicate there's 28 stalls, but I don't see number 9 anywhere.
I don't see it either. I think it might be referring it to as a bike rack. We can confirm that with the applicant.
The bike rack would certainly give them credit,
Right.
but if you were counting parking stalls, I think you still would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as sequential and not skip a number.
It does look like there's a number missing.
Okay, and then let me ask, I sort of have my own interpretation of this, but I want to make sure I'm understanding staff's interpretation. In terms of the adjustments the applicant made in response to council feedback during screening. And I won't put Councilmember Harlan on the spot, but the comment about formulaic design. I looked at the plans as they were submitted to council a year ago, and every floor plan was identical to each other. The staff report indicates that the applicant's response to that feedback of a formulaic design was to change the floor plans, so now we have 3 different floor plans. Is it your feeling that that change is responsive to what the city council's feedback was, to their concern about the formulaic design?
Yeah, that was our justification for the response to the council screening. And if you were to look through the floor plans, you'll see there's changes on different floor levels. And also the corner change where the council emphasized that the design did not respond to the corner importance of that area. So changing that elevation was also important.
And I was going to get to that one. The formulaic, I'll come back to that. So this thing about the corner. There was a lot of feedback discussion about this corner, the importance of the corner, and some opinion as to what should be done at that corner. And in the staff report, there is a attachment 2, and it's titled 1540 Superior Project Description. Did staff write that, or did the applicant write that? That's my foundational question.
Staff did not write that.
Then that would mean the applicant wrote that, yeah. Because their response to that, and I'm wanting to, again, know if staff feels that this is responsive to the council feedback about the importance of that corner. and the desire for it to be potentially a bodega kind of market for us ordinary people. It says that the project did consider an active retail component. The location is not an active retail area, and the market demand is not there. And I'm wondering, did staff think about that from the perspective of, if this is the first of many infill projects in that area, I can understand there's no demand, there's no market yet. Did staff think that the applicant's response that there's no demand and no market was responsive to the council member feedback? That's my question.
The way that staff reviewed that concern of the council is that we understand that the live-work land use matrix allows for retail, and certainly uses could change throughout the years, or one could even be included in there. We also appreciated the fact that the corner landscaping sort of highlighted that area as an area where potential retail could exist and be separated from the street, but still also be viewed from the street. So a retail environment could work there from a perspective where the previous design didn't work as well.
The last area of feedback that I took note of was this interest in the activation or interaction of the work component with the street. And I'm curious about that. In fact, there was a comment about these shadowy people pictures, people on the rendering. They're still there in the proposed design. Comment being, where are these people going? What are they doing there? And if that's an indication that there's an intention to activate, and I assume it is, the question still, to me, is raised. And I'm wondering if you feel that adding planter boxes is responsive to the concern about activation, and if you believe that making the windows bigger somehow is going to be responsive to activating the street. And then I have a question about those windows, but do you believe that the changes the applicant made was responsive to the concern about activation with the streetscape?
Staff believed that it improved the design. We also felt that more could be done potentially, but left it to the architect to really come up with those changes. This is what the architect came up with. We did look at the windows, and we really like the emphasis on the signage, the blade signs that are above the awnings. You have to look really closely, but they are there, and I think that really activates it from a commercial perspective. Staff believe that.
So one of the points of discussion at the Planning Commission meeting, I don't recall how it was resolved or exactly how it was characterized, but when I look at this artistic rendering and I see these black windows, to me that doesn't look like any commercial space that I've seen anywhere in the city. It certainly doesn't invite you to knock on the door or to walk in the space or even to recognize that there are potentially commercial businesses there. Did staff have any discussion with the applicant about those windows being dark and how that impacted the activation with the streetscape?
Staff did have early conversations with the applicant on both project designs, including the other project that the Planning Commission approved a meeting ago. And it was, there wasn't necessarily comments about the tinting of the windows, so to speak, but making the windows more visual and opaque and more see into type of a scenario to where a commercial activity could be seen from the street and potential customers could view the site as a retail or commercial whatever there might be operating in the.
It doesn't appear you could see into those windows, though.
Not per the design, but I don't have any standards that are written on the plans that speak to window tinting. It might just be a place that it might be a way that the graphic designer illustrates windows. You might want to ask the applicant that, but it's not my understanding that those windows are to be darkened like that as they're illustrated.
Okay, the other question I have about the design has to do with the expectation of the live-work space. And the Mesa West plan does, I think, an excellent job of characterizing that. And I thought I could refer you to the page where it existed. But I wrote down the quote. And it says that, and I'm quoting, "There must be a reasonable expectation that business activities will occur." Not hope, a reasonable expectation. The live-work typically is designed, and this is documentation from the city. Live-work typically designed for 1 or 2 adults, not for families. That statement is not in isolation and not supported by other aspects of the urban plan. In fact, when the urban plan discusses the live-work concept in contrast with the residential loft, it makes the point that because of this live-work environment, there's no common space, no open space, no swimming pools, no barbecues, because this isn't a normal residential development. This is designed, intended for 1 or 2 adults, not for families. So then when I look at the floor plans and I see 3 bedrooms, I'm wondering, are we serious about live work? Why would there be 3 bedrooms when we put so much emphasis on work? What do we need 3 bedrooms for? Did we look at that?
Staff did speak with the applicant during their initial review and prior to the screening about mixing up the size of the bedrooms of each one of those units, and this is what the applicant returned with. That's a good question for the applicant, though. From a staff perspective, we did see that language in the code, and we believed it was a guideline more of a requirement.
We're not just trying to build market rate housing here, as one commenter made at the screening, correct? This emphasis is on live work, correct?
The only residential that's allowed in this overlay would be live worker lofts.
So in our conditions of approval, and I'm referring now to page 9, there is the information about the notice to buyers. Who is obligated to provide that notice to buyers? Who has that legal obligation?
The sellers.
So it's not recorded as a covenant on the property.
It would be recorded.
A title search would bring that up then?
Correct.
Thank you. And then if you could turn to page 17 of the staff presentation. I was unclear about the wording of condition of approval number 10 on page 10. And your language here is pretty clear to me, clearer to me than the way it's written in the staff report. This one says the roof decks are not to include any permanent furniture. And when you say permanent furniture, do you mean bolted down, or do you mean, what do you mean by permanent furniture? If I was going to debate you and say, hey, this isn't permanent, what is your test for whether it is?
So the intent of that condition is to prevent unintended building height, structure height. And this is common for a lot of loft-type developments where they have rooftop decks. The city cannot regulate non-permanent furniture or planters. That's not something that the city regulates. But when it's permanent, as it's attached or connected, that would be a different scenario than if somebody brought a chair up there or an umbrella with a weight at the bottom.
So I could put a picnic table up on the roof deck, no problem?
Correct.
Sofa, chairs, no problem?
Correct.
Got it. And according to this, the way it's worded in the staff report, so long as none of that exceeds the parapet wall height, I'm okay?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And condition of approval number 4 on page 15. So this is under planning also. So this limits noise generating construction activity. And I was curious about that because since we have work components that can generate noise, but during business hours, do we not have a condition of approval that relates to business noise generating activities?
So you're referring, I'm sorry, I was in the middle of another question and confirming, but you're referring to condition number 4?
Correct, on page 15.
I understand. And that, obviously, you're referring to that question as being during construction and then going to what if there's an issue with noise from one of the uses that might affect a neighboring use or a neighboring unit.
Correct.
And the way that we would respond to that is the land use matrix holds and requires conditional use permits for other activities and uses that would be allowed and permitted with the discretionary approval. And that's when the city would be involved with the conditions to control noise or other potential neighboring impacts or just basic neighbor compatibility.
Got it. So the minor conditional use permit is where you would take a look at what the proposed activity is and what that noise would be?
I believe the code refers it to a CUP, but an MCUP might, it does actually, it refers to both of them actually. I apologize.
So in that table of uses, the uses that are designated with a P for permitted, those are permitted by right, correct?
Correct.
Commissioner Zick, if I may, about how many more questions do we have?
I'm almost done.
Okay, I'd like to facilitate this conversation if I could. Thank you.
Is somebody else waiting for asking questions? I'd be happy to yield.
I'd like for you to be able to ask your questions. I just want to move things along if we could.
On condition of approval number 27 on page 12, and specifically subsection G of that discusses the homeowner association signed affidavit requirement. They're required to sign the affidavit relative to the two-car garages and the vehicle parking. and the inspection of the garages. I don't see that we have, as part of the affidavit requirement, a inspection right for the work areas. Is that handled or covered somewhere else that I missed?
Yes, there is another condition, and I did notice it when I was reading the application again today, that talks about that the city has an opportunity to go into the work area with notice. And I think it was in response to confirming that it is actually used for work.
Okay.
I could look a little around if you want me to confirm what number it is.
No, if you've got that memory, I'll trust you on that.
Thank you.
There was a letter in the staff report from York Engineering that spoke to their health risk assessment. And I think in your staff report, Mr. Raimondo, you indicated that conducting this health risk assessment is a requirement for residential development in this overlay zone, correct?
That is correct.
Why would we require a health risk assessment for residential development in this area?
Commissioner Zick, so the health risk assessment is required because this is a primarily industrial and commercial zone. Traditional residential you wouldn't see in the area. Right. So the intent of this report is to make sure that there won't be any negative impacts on the health of residents moving into the
Thank
location.
you. That was also a foundational question. So when I read this letter from York, and thank you for that, I didn't see what I felt like was a clear-cut conclusion that said, if somebody wants to live and work in one of these units and exist there 24/7, there is no health risk to them. In the first paragraph, there's something that says the evaluation supports Article 19 of 15332, Class 32. I suppose if I was really ambitious, I would have tried to look that up. Did I miss a conclusion somewhere? There's a lot of data in here, but is there a conclusion that you could point me to that says there's no health risk to people living and working in these units 24/7? In an industrial environment, all the health standards are based on permissible exposure limits, and those are generally characterized by normal work hours, a work period of the day, not 24/7. So that's why I'm asking.
So, Commissioner Zick, the reports included variety of thresholds for the various particulates. The threshold is, for Table 3 specifically, the max threshold allowed is the 10, and what was shown is 1.9 and 1.5, so it was well below the threshold. That's why the consultant there recommended the exemption from CEQA. If it was above that threshold, then the project would have been required to do further environmental analysis.
Got it, thank you. And then just 3 simple questions left. I'll turn it back to the chair. In the work area, I noticed that there's a door between that and the garage. I understand why that door exists. I don't see doors between the work area and the stairs to the living area. Would there be a code prohibition if an owner wanted to put a door there separating their work area from their private live area? Is there a code requirement that would prevent that?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Zick. I believe that when I was reviewing the floor plans that there was a door from the work area to the live area, either on the upper or lower stair landing. So if you don't mind, hold on for just 1 second so I could double check.
Commissioner Zick, if I may, most of these live-work units, they are constructed with the spaces with outdoors. And I don't believe there's anything in the code which would prohibit a door to be placed between them, but I'll review the code and let you know in a few minutes.
Okay. And somewhat related to that, on the ground floor, and I might have to ask the applicant, but in case you've looked at it, on the ground floor, the common walls between these work areas, what's the thickness of those walls?
Yeah, I would recommend you ask the architect.
And then with regard to parking, the cars that are, or the parking places that are shown in the carport, the 4 stalls that are in carports, is that private parking or is that common parking for guests and customers?
So the 4 tuck-under stalls, those are open parking, which would be available to anyone on the site. And those tuck-under spaces are the 2-bedroom units. So it's anticipated they would have lower parking demand.
And how are those to be marked? So a customer coming in to a business feels comfortable pulling into what would feel like somebody else's private parking area. How are they marked?
I don't recall seeing a provision for marking the signage. Is there? Thank you, Chris.
So all guest parking spaces are required to be marked as guest spaces. So there would have to be some sort of monument or signage.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, that's it for my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Commissioner Vivar.
All right. I've a few short questions. I will try to handle this in a couple minutes. One quick question. So did we confirm if that was 8 or 9 parking spaces? Mr. Drapkin or Mr. Ramondo?
So the parking shown on the site plan, there is the number 9 is missing. However, the total number of parking spaces are provided. There are the 14 covered live or residential parking spaces, and then there are the 13 open plus a bike rack, which accounts to the 14 total guest spaces.
Okay. From the originally proposed project to this one, there weren't any changes on the number of directly street-facing storefronts, were there? It's only the 4 of them, I think, along Industrial Way.
That's correct. There is no changes between the original proposal and the current proposal in terms of the street-facing storefronts on Industrial.
All right, and my last question, maybe Mr. Drapkin might be able to answer this. So is signage not required as a condition for each of the 9 units, or is that sort of up to each unit owner to put up signage or not?
So signage isn't a requirement per se. It's shown on the elevations, and I believe that it would be difficult to, although it would be difficult to require signage for each use. Typically, signage is something that business would ask for, and staff wouldn't normally require them to have. I don't know if we could ever, and this might be a good question for the city attorney, but I don't know that we could condition them to have a requirement for signage per se.
Right.
It certainly would be something that staff would prefer, that all the businesses do show signage to show clear indication that there's commercial activity at the site. But as far as requiring it, might be difficult.
Would we be able to require some kind of a signpost either near the driveway or near street facing or something, kind of like you would see at a small commercial center where you'd have the business names along that sign?
Yes, I do think that that would be something that the Planning Commission could condition. For instance, the the planning commission could require a monument sign of some sort that says these are commercial live works, something to that effect. The staff would review the signage after a PC review, but that would be something that the PC could do.
Right, and then so staff would obviously look at all the site distance requirements and whatnot for that kind of a.
Correct, yeah, there is a requirement in the urban plan that requires a sign program to be reviewed.
Sure, okay, and that's it for me, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the brevity, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Klepak, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rojas? Okay, Commissioner Andrade?
I think my only question, I don't know if this is more applicable for staff or the developer, is one of the public comments that we received from the city of Newport, and just sounds like a fair warning that there's a corporation yard with compressed natural gas that's a facility right nearby. No concerns there? Okay to disregard this warning?
So the notice, it would also be included in the notice to buyers, along with all other uses within 500 feet of the property. So any buyer who buys that would know what is there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair?
Sure, thank you. I have only a few questions. Thank you guys for the staff report and presentation. Parking requirements, is it 27 or 28? Or does it depend on how you do the math?
It's 1.5 per unit for the resident and 1.5 for the guest, so it's 27. They're proposing 28 because they're proposing a bike rack. So one bike rack accounts for one parking space, so technically they're providing 28 parking spaces, but 27 is required.
Okay.
And if I could just add on, the guest parking and resident parking is separated in two separate requirements.
So it's
that's
rounded
why
up
there's the
before you-
13 and a half for guest and 13 and a half, which has to be rounded up to the 14,
So it depends when you round it, I guess.
which is always for parking.
Okay. Do we have anything in our code that requires electric vehicle charging stations for any of these?
There's code requirements that requires at certain levels of development that they be electric charging ready. That's usually a building code requirement. It doesn't really cross planning, so that's too much.
Okay. Okay, this one's for planning. Tinted windows. We don't have anything that would preclude mirrored windows or opaque windows of any kind that are intended to be kind of like storefronts.
We don't have anything on the conditions currently.
So not in the code or the urban plan, but if that were required, that would be through the conditions.
It would be.
Like tonight, added on.
Correct.
Okay. Have we done that before?
We've gone the opposite way with cannabis.
Yeah.
I think it would be appropriate here.
Okay. Last question. It has to do with landscaping. If you could go to slide 3. And that shows kind of the before and after when it was screened by council and the changes that were made. And in the above image, you have the parkway on the street side of the sidewalk. It looks like you have a public sidewalk, you have a landscape parkway with trees, and then in the after image, you have a sidewalk right along the roadway. You lost the parkway, and it looks like we lost the trees in this rendering at least. But I think in the elevations, no, not the elevations, sorry. Slide 11, I think it was slide 11 that shows a plan view. Illustrative plan view. Wasn't 11, try 15. Maybe it was, yeah, just look for the there we go. There's 10. We have a little lag. Yeah, we do have a lag. Sorry. Well,
Staff did visit the area, and I did staff did notice that there's a change in the landscaping parkway versus the proposed in the prior screening. And staff definitely considered the Planning Commission's last project review where trees were being proposed between the sidewalk and the streetscape. One of the concerns that staff had on this project is when touring the area, the area does not have this landscape buffer between the sidewalk on either of the streets, whether it be Superior or Industrial, in a lot of the areas around that. I also believe that the right-of-way there is constrained from a width perspective as well. So I think where the city would get its best bang for the buck, so to speak, from a landscaping perspective, is the proposal that the applicant's currently showing with regards to the landscape area just on the other side of the sidewalk. But generally, the staff would prefer that there be some type of a landscape buffer. Just in this situation, it's not compatible with the rest of the neighborhood.
Right, so what's being proposed now is what we're seeing. And you have something like a parkway, it's a raised planter, and something like a sidewalk, but it's on private, and it's just pushed into the setback.
Correct.
What do we think the distance is between those trees and the facades?
That would be a better question for the applicant. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are all my questions for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. I have just a couple brief questions. Again, thank you, Mr. Raimondo, Director Dropkin, for your time. The report mentions, I believe it was in the applicant letter, that there were solar panels that were planned. Where exactly are those planned to go? Because I didn't see it in any of the renderings. I assume the roof, but yeah.
Yeah, again, probably a better question for the applicant.
Sure.
And see if it would be at the point where it would be solar ready or it would be solar with the development. Again, there are some requirements for both.
Okay.
Depending on the nature of the development.
I'll ask the applicant that. Thank you, Director Dropkin.
Thank you.
And if staff wouldn't mind reminding me about some of the drainage and runoff features on the site. One of the concerns that I heard during some ex parte communication that I had was current drainage and runoff issues on the site. How is this project going to improve that specifically?
Yeah, this was similar to the previous project. This landscaping plan, or actually the preliminary grading plan, also included some best management practices with site drainage. Off the top of my head, I'm not that familiar with it, but a good applicant question as well.
I want to say, what was it, interlocking pavers or some kind of percolation drainage system?
Yeah, that's definitely a requirement of the urban plan, but there was also some other drainage requirements where there were landscape buffers in the other design, and I don't know if they're proposed in this one as well.
Okay. Maybe I'll hold off on it, but maybe a question I'll ask the applicant later is if those drainage features are site-wide or if they're around the periphery of the site or specifically in just a couple of the directions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any follow-up questions for staff? All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Raimondo, Director Dropkin. Appreciate it. Mr. Yeager. I think before we open things up to the applicant, we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break, okay? Thank you. We'll see you in 5 minutes. Welcome back to the Planning Commission meeting of October 9th, 2023. I call the meeting to order. And I will now open the public hearing and ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to come to the podium. And if you would, please state your name for the record and let us know if you've read the staff report, the conditions of approval, and if you agree to them.
My name is Ryan Lederman from Holland and Knight. Thank you for having me here. Did review the staff report. We are fine with the conditions of approval. And I have to say we're thrilled to be back in Costa Mesa after a few weeks and impressed at the very thoughtful and detailed questions so far this evening. It's nice to get a little preview before, so I do appreciate that. This is an exciting project. It's 9 live-work units. It's fully compliant with all objective development standards, except for the lot size requirement by which we sought a deviation. So therefore, the project is compliant with all objective standards. I do want to address some of the comments that were raised earlier. So with parking, I wish we had the foresight to know that the governor would sign AB 2097, which provides parking relief for projects that are within a half mile of transit. But we didn't have a crystal ball several years ago when the project was being formulated. So as is, we comply with the city's zoning code requirements, which basically are tantamount to 3 parking spaces. But due to the rounding of parking spaces, it turns into 28, but then you get you get credit for 2 parking spaces. So therefore, there are 27 parking spaces on the plans, which is basically almost 3 units, or actually it's exactly 3 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And then also I just want to address a few comments about the trees along Industrial. There's actually a gas line under the sidewalk over there. So that's why the initial plan had trees over there. But there's a little bit of method to the madness why the trees were removed from that location, because it would be a conflict with the underground utilities in that location. With respect to the planter box, there is a great difference in order to assure ADA access. So if we didn't have a planter box there, there'd be, I don't want to say a cliff, but there would be a little bit of a drop off. So we kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You have landscaping, but then you also have protection for pedestrians so that they don't fall off the curb or fall off onto the sidewalk. With respect to amenities, every unit has a copious amount of open space, whether it's a roof deck or open space on the 3rd floor. There's also a common area. Yes, it's not gigantic, but this is infill development at 20 dwelling units an acre. So we're trying to do our best with providing amenities. So every unit has a lot of open space. And then in addition, there is common open space where there is going to be a barbecue. And whether it's 1 or 2 people or a family, the development is not going to discriminate on housing type or family type. So all will be welcome in this development. And with respect to the different competing uses in the area, there are, staff has conditioned this with disclosures that'll be required with CC&Rs. They're mandatory, they're going to be binding. And this development is not going to be for everyone. Not everyone's going to want to live there given the various different uses. But we do have the developer, Burke Custom Homes, or Burke Properties LLC, excuse me, has developed live-work units. And for professionals who own their house and then want to work in the workspace, this is a great opportunity. So whether it's for attorneys, or whether they can host conferences or meetings down there, or professionals, architects. And we do have a slideshow, or at least a presentation. We could go through some of the existing live-work examples that we have, which are very successful in the area and then also in Newport Beach as well. I did want to address the tinting issue. That was a rendering, so apologies about the rendering. They're not tinted windows. They're opaque, and if we actually go to the very first slide that we have, well, it's up there right now.
Just in the meantime, Mr. Litterman, I don't know if I caught it earlier. Did you say that you had read the staff report
Yes.
and the conditions of approval and you agree?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, continue.
Thank you. And so you can see over here that there's actually transparency on that ground level as well as the upper levels. It's just a matter of how these are rendered. So there's no proposal for tinting of any of these and will be amenable to whatever the commission would like to do. This was an issue of discussion when we were here a few weeks ago about the transparency, and so this was specifically addressed. And I don't believe any of the conditions for the other project were changed, and the proposal is actually very similar. With respect to some of the comments from City Council, a number of changes were made, and that includes making that corner unit larger. It has 500 square feet of live workspace, or actually workspace in that area. So it can accommodate, maybe in the future, there could be retail once the neighborhood does grow to have more residential uses, which I think is encouraged by the community plan. And so that was a change. And then as a result of increasing the size of that workspace on the ground floor for that corner unit, there was a shifting. The building shifted toward the driveway. So there was a larger presence along industrial as well. And then as staff pointed out, and thank you staff for the presentation, there is open space. There are different types of open space. That corner unit has a cutout, and the variation was changed with respect to the unit. So if we could go to the next slide. Excuse me, these are examples of existing lofts in your neighboring city. Very attractive. That was design inspiration for this project. Next slide, please. Again, these are existing live-work units that ownership took these pictures of existing live-work units, and you could see that transparency. And so those larger windows that were added, you have that transparency, you have that visibility, and we are not proposing tinting of windows. It's just a matter of just how that image was rendered. Next slide, please. You've seen this. This is the site plan, and you can see where at the bottom left corner where it says A3, that is that larger unit with 500 square feet. And the workspace for this project, unlike the other one, does have substantially larger workspace on the ground floor. The minimum workspace is 297 square feet, so nearly 300 square feet. And again, that corner unit, in response to comments that were received, has 500 square feet of workspace. Next slide, please. This is the roof plan, and you can see the hatching where the open space areas up on the roof. And I do want to point out with respect to solar, because the buildings are over 3 stories, it will be required to have solar. So a solar plan will be developed during the plan check process. But there will be solar up there. And then with respect to the EV parking, the project will comply with California building code and the green building code, which have different levels of requirements for EV parking and EV ready. So the project will comply with those requirements. Next slide, please. You've seen the floor plan, so I don't want to focus on these unless there are questions. Next slide, please. Again, more unit plans. Next slide, please. And then again, especially with the A3 type showing at the corner, you could see that large non-residential workspace on the ground floor. If I recall, there was a question with respect to somehow separating the workspace with a door. They're required to have the same, the ownership is supposed to, you can't lease out the space to someone else, so it's someone's unit. So that's why there's no proposal for a door there on that ground floor. But there is a separation, a physical separation with the staircase. Next slide, please. Again, another image with rendering. You can see some of the trees, the active streetscape. So unlike some of the other renderings, they're actually people, not just silhouettes. And next slide, please. This just shows the elevations, the different materials, the variation. Next slide, please. Again, just there are windows on the ground floor, along the side. Next slide, please. More elevations. Okay, I had a lot of elevations. Next slide, please. And this is the landscape plan, robust landscaping. There are trees that are proposed in excess of the code requirements. And again, the reason why there are no trees on Industrial Way and the Parkway is because of the underground gas line that's under the sidewalk. Next slide, please. Just some of the imagery associated with the landscaping that is proposed as part of the project. Next slide, please. We just wanted, I don't think I showed this or we showed this last time, and this just again shows some of the imagery associated with existing live-work units, so small retail, a designer can work there and show her wares, one can have meetings there. So it's really geared toward professionals who probably you're not going to have a gym over here. And if you do, I think, there might be conditions or requirements in the CCNRs. And then, of course, if someone does want to have a small personal gym, I'm sure there's a conditional use permit requirement and the city can impose whatever noise standards it would like on that so that there's no adverse impact on any of the residents or neighbors. And I believe that's it. Next slide. Okay, that's it. We have the full development team over here. We have ownership. We have the landscape architect. We have the civil engineer over here and architect. So happy to try to answer any questions. I know there were a lot of questions earlier, so hopefully I've answered all or most of them satisfactorily. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Litterman. I appreciate the presentation. Commissioners, if you have questions of the applicant, we'll go ahead and limit it to 5 minutes apiece, okay? Starting with Commissioner Zick.
There was a project very similar to this a month ago, and I wasn't at that meeting. I make no apology for my questions. If you could turn to the landscape plan, I have just one question for you. The pedestrian path of travel to the live-work units that are facing industrial. Looks to me like they walk from the parking down the driveway to the sidewalk and then over and then up to the new
So there's this.
concrete walkway. Is that correct, that they're basically exposed in the driveway as they're exiting the parking lot?
So there's, looking at the landscape plan, there's a planner there, so one would enter off the sidewalk and not through the driveway.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Commissioner? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, just a couple questions. You mentioned there's going to be a barbecue little area on site?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason why when you were exploring the designs for this live-work unit development, you didn't have all of your 9 units with storefronts facing the street?
I think it would be difficult given the constraints of the site. I don't think you could have all 9 units facing the street, and so that would be problematic. You just can't do it to have access with parking spaces in the back and access to them. So I think thought was given, and we have the architect here who can address the design inspiration, but you're constrained by the ability to squeeze all those units in there.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. As for signage, did you at all consider a monument type of signage?
We're amenable to a monument sign if that's the direction from the commission. Happy to put one. It is a little tight over there, but I'm sure we'll make it work, and to the satisfaction of the planning director.
Okay. And I can't remember, but how many trees were you proposing?
I believe it's 11.
11. And did the civil or somebody else look at any potential for root intrusions either into the gas or water that are existing in your sort of substructure?
There shouldn't be any conflicts between the, sorry about that. There shouldn't be any conflicts between the utilities and the tree root locations, but we would double check that during plan check as well.
Okay, sure. All right, that's it for me. I don't think I have anything else. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else? Yeah, Commissioner Andrade.
To add on to the trees question, so you mentioned that there's gas lines along Industrial Way that would impede that. Is there an opportunity for them, to bring back some of that sidewalk on the Superior side? Does that wrap around?
Well, we do have, there are some trees that are on the Superior side. So I think it's possible to look at what sort of additional flexibility we have. I know we'd be more than willing to work with Public Works. Sometimes there are conflicts with street visibility being too close to the corner and conflicts with street lights. And there are utility poles also on Superior. So there's a lot going on there.
Sure.
So, but to the extent that it could be done, we're willing to work with Public Works on that.
Yeah, I mean, because again, thinking of, right, the future of Costa Mesa, you're building for the future of Costa Mesa, right? And what it will look like. Right now, like it was shared, right, it's very industrial area, very gray, all full of concrete. So any opportunity to maximize green space would be amazing if it's possible at all, and of course within safety concerns. Or how about any thought of, there's kind of like a growing movement of including some, in big cities, including green space on the roofs. So as you're talking about barbecues and making spaces amenable, is there, to absorb some of the carbon that we're on, to kind of cool our city in some ways?
Sure, it's a great question. There are roof decks in about half the units. And so I don't believe that we are proposing any sort of landscaping up there, but that would be up to the discretion of the homeowner as to what sort of landscaping they want there. And of course, each homeowner has to maintain their own unit, and so I think it would be a big ask to ask a private homeowner to maintain it up on the rooftop. And then also you do have solar up there also, and then you have mechanical equipment, so it does get a little bit tight with the space up there as well.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair, you have any questions? All right. Commissioner Klepak, any questions? Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and ask a question, Mr. Lederman. Thank you very much for your time and thorough but brief presentation. I appreciate it. Going back to the question I asked staff earlier about on-site drainage, can you just jog the public in terms of what's being constructed on-site, potentially near-site, for stormwater drainage?
Sure. So there actually, the site improves the amount of pervious surface that's on the property, so there'll be a little bit of an increase. The project will have BMP's, best management practices, to go ahead and detain stormwater as well. The gradient, as far as we understand, drains toward industrial, away from the property to, I believe it's to the east, northeast. And so there are going to be standards and measures to attenuate stormwater runoff.
Okay. And I can't recall the page, but if you could just jog my memory, was there any plan for a new curb inlet along the street as part of the project improvements?
We have the civil engineer here, so I'm going to ask him to address that.
That's okay.
So at that south corner, there is an existing curb inlet, and there is no plan to upgrade that or do anything else with it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
I think that's all for me. I appreciate it. Commissioners, do you have any further questions? Commissioner Vivar.
Very quick one. So, are the concrete walls you guys are proposing just going to be basic concrete walls, or are they going to be decorative? Because I remember seeing something in the community element of our general plan that recommends the installation of decorative concrete walls between residential and industrial. So, not sure if you were aware of that or.
I believe they're decorative concrete walls, but I think we'd have to check the plans as to what they are, what the requirement is.
That's okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right, thank you.
Chair, if I may, I was reviewing the plans, and there is a bioretention planter location proposed on the area just to the right of the driveway inlet, in the little landscape area there, number 4.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Director. Colleagues, any further questions? All right, seeing none. All right, applicant team, thank you very much for your time. We may call you up back up here at some point. I will now open the meeting for public comments. If you'd like to speak to this item and you're in chambers, you're welcome to come to either podium and make your comments for 3 minutes. Yes, Mr. Billy. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, sir, and at the 1 minute mark, you'll hear a chime, and then after 3 minutes, just cuts you right off. It's not me, I promise.
Well, we've been here for quite a while, so I'll try to make this as simple as possible. But I'd like to introduce myself as Billy Spratlin. I own 120 Industrial Way, which is two units off of the build area. I'm next to the level 1 project that was done some years ago. And next to the project itself is Dan's Automotive. So that kind of gives you an idea of where I am back in the back. I'm actually back at the back of SOS's parking lot. That's where my back of my building butts into that part. And therein lies my problem. I just wanted to make you aware of my situation as you go through this process and doing this. But as I was coming over here, I stopped by my office there in 120 Industrial Way, and it's actually a headquarters for a great design company, JPS Designs. They do retail interior spaces to design, build, and install. And he wanted me to ask you guys a simple question to the applicant and also to you, that did you give consideration, and it's actually based upon the plot plan and where the property is the entry and exits of your project onto Industrial Way, and what problems the people that own those units are going to have when they come out or go into there to that space, because it's right there in the corner, a very congested corner of Superior and Industrial Way. And in the mornings and afternoons, there's traffic that backs up into that area trying to wait for the light to change to where they can go directions. So he wanted to point out to you it's going to be kind of a difficult situation for in and out, ingress and egress. With that said, my main problem is water runoff, rainwater runoff that happens, has been happening now for 35 years, all the time that I've owned the property there, from SOS parking. Their complete parking lot is graded such in the years in the past that all of the rainwater runoff comes to the back of my building and goes into I guess you call it a sump pump area. I forget. Catch basin is what I'm trying to say. It goes into the catch basin and there are two pumps that try to pump the stuff out of there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sprague. That's 3 minutes. It goes fast, doesn't it? Well, thank you for your comment, and thank you for conducting your business in this city. We appreciate it. Anyone else in chambers wish to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, Anna, if we could go to telephone or Zoom, anyone?
No, there is not, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing and ask commissioners if you have any further questions for the applicant. All right, seeing none. Does the applicant have any closing comments? You're welcome to or not. It's up to you.
Just Ryan Lederman for the record. I just want to say residential uses have a lower trip count than commercial uses. So the trip count will be lower, and then the number of driveways also are being reduced over here as well from the existing conditions. So that'll reduce conflicts with traffic as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lederman. Commissioners, do you have any further questions for staff? Yeah, Vice Chair.
The commenter brought up runoff. Do we have any standards about permeable pavement or permeable surfaces for surface lots or anything like that that addresses that from the planning side of permitting?
Go ahead, Chris. So I guess in terms of the runoff, the grading plan which was provided, it does show that the lot will be regraded. So any runoff, it would be directed generally towards Industrial Way, where the biofiltration thing is. In terms of pervious pavers, the urban plan, it does encourage pervious pavers. As proposed, I don't believe the application is including them. They're including decorative concrete, but it is encouraged in the urban plan.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Toller. Anyone else? Commissioner Vivar.
So regarding the biofiltration, is there some kind of some requirement that I guess in this case, the HOA keep the plants that are alive to basically keep the biofiltration, there in case of a storm?
Typically, that is part of the HOA to respond to the community utilities.
Right. So we have no control over if those plants just dry out and just turns into dirt, right?
In addition to the HOA requiring that all landscape be maintained, the municipal code requires that landscaping be maintained.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Good. All right. That's it for Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. I will now close the public hearing and entertain a motion. So if anyone would like to make a motion, please. Motion made by Commissioner Vivar. What is your motion, Commissioner?
Yeah, my motion is to approve planning application PA 23
It's 22
20
one second. Yeah, 22-31.
22-31, subject to conditions of approval and category exempt from the CEQA requirements.
Okay. If I may, Commissioner, maybe I'll reiterate
thanks.
some of the language, if that's okay. So this is to approve planning application 22-31 and tentative track map number 19246 for a master plan for a 9-unit live-work development at 1540 Superior Avenue, and to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA guidelines section 15332, class 32 for infill development, and approved planning application 22-31 and a tentative track map 19246, subject to the conditions of approval. Is that your motion?
That's a mouthful, but yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair Toller. Would you like to speak to your motion, Vice Chair or Commissioner?
No, I just got promoted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting project, and I appreciate my colleagues up here going back and forth with staff and with the applicant on this project. I know that these live work units are sort of a newer animal for us, as we aren't really used to looking at this kind of a land use proposed project. But I think this project will help to revitalize that area. And I think replacing an empty industrial building with residential will be a good thing for the city and for that corner in particular. And it's my hope that the proposed commercial spaces that will belong to that will be part of each of the 9 units will in fact have retail or other commercial uses that will activate that street frontage, and that will be inviting towards people in the community to drop in for whatever services are being offered. So that's my motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rivar. Vice Chair Toller.
Yeah, obviously I'm in support of the motion. I think those renderings that the applicant had in their presentation looked really good. Given our policies and our codes and our urban plan and everything, this is the outcome. This is the only possible outcome. So there's not a whole lot to talk about, right? We say max 20 DUA, dwelling units to the acre. This is about a half an acre. Do the math. It's under a half an acre. You're going to get 9 units. To fit 9 units on this site and 3 parking spaces per unit, they made it work. And congratulations for figuring that out. And it looked like, even with all the setbacks and everything, it still ended up being a pretty good design. You got 4 facing the street. I understand why you did Industrial Way. It's a little quieter than Superior. 4 units are unfortunately kind of on timeout, but that's the nature. You know, they're 5 feet away from a brick wall, which is awkward, but that's what we do. That's what happens given our parking requirement, our density max. You just put those ingredients in the recipe, and this is the cake we're going to get. Add to that some building code requirements that are just forcing this type. This is the type that we're seeing all over town. And in some ways they're good, some ways they're maybe suboptimal. I think this site, people were talking about the corner treatment. This really is visible. I don't know if you guys know, maybe like a half a mile down 16th Street. If you look down, you could see this from almost Newport Beach, right? Like going west. And classical cities and a lot of forward-thinking cities right now, they have terminated vista requirements. So when you have a real prominent corner, you would have maybe relaxed standards that allow something a little more bigger, larger with more density, more height allowed, and maybe some more strict requirements on design, tower elements or something like that. So in some ways, it's kind of sad to see like, oh, nine little live work units in this real prominent spot, kind of an anchor to a big piece of the west side. 3 parking spaces per unit. This is 2023 in Costa Mesa, and we're supposed to be making progress on this front, but we're still requiring that. That's insane to me. This walk score is 89, which is really good. When I was in school, if I got an 89, that was really good. This is a walkable area. 3 parking spaces is way too high, and we need to change that. The design, I preferred traditional. This is a little more modern. It still looks great, but these are not. Let's see. The density that we've capped it at is not moving the needle. If we're trying to make these allowances. Like the whole reason we have this overlay is, okay, we need more, part of it, right? We need more housing. This isn't moving the needle. This sort of development we got 9 millionaires moving in. This isn't a starter home for anybody. So fair enough. They played by the rules. They made it work. They're doing a good job. It's going to look good. It's going to make the area a little better. Great that we're losing a driveway. We're going to get a lot more trees. It's going to shape the street a little bit. And hopefully it will be a cool live work kind of neighborhood anchor for, useful services or retail one day. But anyway, those are all my comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We'll go to the end. Commissioner Rojas, do you have any comments on the motion? Commissioner Zick?
Yes, thank you. I agree with a lot of Vice Chair's sentiments regarding the project. I love the applicant's enthusiasm. I love the quality of what they're intending to build. I think the architectural renderings are beautiful, and if they're representative of the final constructed product, I think it'll be visually attractive and appealing. We received a letter from something called the California Housing Defense Fund, a nonprofit organization that wanted to remind the commission that we need to abide by all relevant housing laws and that this project complies with all local land use rules. That's good to know that they pointed that out. Actually, I rely on staff to tell me that, and staff did tell me that, which I appreciate. They also point out that there's a crisis level housing shortage. And of course, that's part of their rationale for why this ought to be approved. Of course, that is not at all why the 19 West Plan and the Mesa West Bluffs Plan were created. They were created primarily to revitalize the area. Tired industrial type buildings, not many of them not upgraded in decades. So clearly what your project is doing is bringing some revitalization. The problem I have, though, is there's an inconsistency between what the plans say and what you're proposing. And I don't see that as your fault at all, and I'm not critical of what you're wanting to do. At the council screening, one person said, in response to some of the feedback that they heard that maybe they weren't in agreement with, that was critical, said, well, it is market rate housing. Well, right now in 2023, we seem to be desperate for housing. We hear it a lot. I don't think it's gaslighting. I think there is a shortage of housing. There's housing for sale in Costa Mesa, a lot of it. You want to buy a house, you can buy a house. I don't think it's so much a supply shortage as a concern that people have about the cost of housing. And so the theories of supply and demand would suggest you build more supply to meet the demand, prices will go down. If you look at the live-work units southeast of your project, the pricing of those properties would suggest that if you're really looking for an affordable deal, you're probably not going to find it in these units that you're building. This really is market rate housing that you're building. The inconsistency, though, is that what we say we want is live work. We want work. It's intended for 1 or 2 adults, not families. That's what the plan says. That's not what I'm saying. That's what the plan says. Yet we're building 3-bedroom units. You get a density bonus for live work over residential loft. Why? Because we're not anticipating families, so we don't want and expect that you're going to build open space. We don't have those requirements. You're not building a swimming pool for families. This is what people generally want when they move into housing complexes like this. You're not building it. You get a density bonus. I don't think that's what the intention was, that you were going to use that for bedrooms. The plan doesn't suggest that. So I see some inconsistency with the general plan and the intent of the overlay district. The 1 acre minimum, well, you don't meet it. You're not even close. You're not 0.9, you're not 0.8, not even 0.7, you're not even close. And in my mind, we either change the overlay plan and update it, and there's a process for doing that, or we continue to ignore the requirements that we have in the overlay. And I'm not inclined to do that. I think you've got the votes you need. You don't need mine. And I won't be supporting the motion.
Noted. Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Commissioner Andrade.
Similarly, as the Vice Chair, Commissioner Vick have stated, I mean, this, again, beautiful project. I would love to see this applicant come through when the city starts putting together its inclusionary housing plans, because what you're doing here with the limited space is beautiful, very creative. But just seconding the comments of Commissioner Vick, I mean, we could have had like very modest 26 two-bedroom apartments here. That would actually help address the housing crisis that our city is currently facing and make it more affordable and livable and welcome to all. But again, within the limitations of a code, this is obviously, again, a beautiful project, but again, accessible to very, very few people in our community and even to local residents. I appreciate your efforts in making it welcome into green space, and that you took the mindfulness of checking out every single option so that it's a little more earth-friendly, which is a place where Costa Mesa is striving to be, being more walkable and accessible to all. So that's all my comments.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Andrade. Commissioner Klepak, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I will just say I do think this is a great improvement to the property. I know you have a very small space with which to work, which is why I agree with the comments about monument signage. I think that's important because 5 of the 9 are not facing a road, so I think that would be helpful to kind of direct. But I think it's a great project, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Klepak. Unless anyone else has any further comments, I'll go ahead and close things out. Thank you, applicant team, for answering all of our questions, and to staff for bearing with us this evening, and the public as well. Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a few comments here. I will be supporting the motion. I'm supporting the motion enthusiastically. I've never made any other hint than to support ownership housing opportunities in whatever form that they come in. Land Use Policy 1.3 within our general plan says that we need to provide a greater balance between ownership and rentership opportunities. And though there is absolutely nothing wrong with renting, we are 60% renters and 40% owners. Creating more ownership opportunities creates more of that balance that we are seeking within our general plan. So that in and of itself is consistent with what we're aiming to do. I am inclined to agree with Commissioner Andrade in that this is an environmentally friendly design. I know that you're following the California building codes very closely, so you do have to comply with the newest building codes for sure. But I do know, based off of your last project and from certain features here, that you are going above and beyond the minimum requirements. So I do appreciate that, because yes, Costa Mesa is working towards sustainability. It's something that's one of our key priority goals here in the city. And I think that what you aim to do in this project did much of that. So thank you. I'll say, as far as the 1 acre requirement, I think, yes, the intent is to use that as a benchmark, but it by no means implies that you have to meet that requirement. That's absurd. The reason why you're here asking for a conditional use permit is to reconsider that very requirement, and it's been considered. So this is the process by which that has been weighed. As far as inconsistency with our general plan, I see nothing to indicate that this is inconsistent at all. I think, again, it goes back to the conditional use permit process, having your application put in front of City Council. You got the information that you needed to further develop the project, and then it came to us through this process. So it absolutely complies and it's absolutely consistent. So I wouldn't let anyone say otherwise on that front. As far as swimming pools for families, guess what? You have the Pacific Ocean that's about a quarter mile away, so that's a pretty big swimming pool. And as far as anything else is concerned, I guess we'll just see in the next application. So with that said, Anna, if we could call the question.
That motion carries 6-0 with Commissioner Zick voting no.
All right, thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. 6-1, is that right?
6-1?
Yes, that motion carries 6-1.
Okay.
with
I think we
Commissioner
got
Zick
it.
voting no.
That's okay. I think we got it. Thank you, Anna. All right, I see that decision is final unless appealed to the city council within 7 days. Good luck. Thank you. All right. This brings us to old business, new business. There are neither, which means we'll move on to departmental reports, starting with Mr. Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and honorable members of the Planning Commission. Good evening. So for the Public Works report, just briefly, Walk to School Day was a success, which was held on October 4th. We had schools from College Park, Kaiser, Pomona, Reyes, Sonora, Victoria, Whittier, and Woodland Elementary schools all participating. Approximately 1,350 individuals, including students and adults, participating in the event. And it's also a pleasure to announce that for October 11th, this Wednesday, students from the remaining 5 Costa Mesa elementary schools from Adams, California, Kellybrook, Paularino, and Wilson will be lining up and participating in that Walk to School event as well. So thank you very much, and I'll defer back to the chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yang. Mr. Preziosi.
Thank you, Chair Areth. No report this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Preziosi. And Director Drapkin, do you want to make some comments? I don't see your name on here, but I know you sometimes close us out.
No report tonight.
Okay. Quick follow-up to a lot of discussion we've had about the timing of our meetings. Is there any update about switching our meeting day? I think we're all eager to hear.
I have no problem. I've had a meeting with the director set for this week to discuss it. I'm sorry I've been putting that off. It hasn't been for the sake of the meeting date. It's been for the changes of the commissioner bylaws that need to be updated. I'm trying to figure out. They've, over the last couple of years, they've been updated and changed a bit, and we're trying to get them upgraded. So that's what's taking the time.
Sure. Whenever you get to it, Mr. Drapkin, I know that you're exceedingly busy with about 400 different things that you're juggling. So you continue to have our patience with that, but we do look forward to changing that date when it comes up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll now adjourn the meeting. Thank you for joining us.